after they went through the MDT program, which is the multiple disciplinary team. That's a team from the Ministry of Education where they assist the student, sorry, assess the students, and if they see the need for them to be at a special ed school, they they give the report order that they need to be there. But some, if
How
I
often
may,
is that done?
the MDT,
Yeah, yeah.
well, it's a long process because sometimes it takes 2 3 years and it's not through sometimes any fault of the school or the parent, because sometimes the teacher first they have to do the vision test, then they do the hearing test, then they go to the um, community doctor at the Sufre hospital, and then she sends them for blood tests. Now that's the holdup. When parents have to pay monies for the blood test, the parents say they don't have any monies.
Okay.
But now that the government has made it free for the blood test,
Okay, nice. That's good.
but
That's an
still,
improvement.
still with the blood test, like I know some students who just went to do the blood test, and sometimes it's about a month, and they have appointments and it takes a while before the children can do the blood test. And when they get all those results, the teacher writes a report and sends it to that is the special ed unit. That's a section of the Ministry of Education. When it gets there now, that's the whole, because they're serving the whole island.
Mhm.
They're serving the whole island, and most times, sometimes they will give priority maybe to students in grade two,
Mhm.
and not even grade two. I'll not even say grade two MST. I'll say they give priority sometimes to common entrance children, CXC children to get accommodations, and then MST, because MST is the last one, like the exams on island.
Mhm.
Then you have common entrance, you are or CPA now, you have CXC, and then MST. And sometimes when it gets there, sometimes it's not like based on the number of students. Sometimes those students don't even have time get through MST, and then they go to the primary school, and then sometimes they're saying they have to start the process over again. So sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you see you start a process this year,
Mhm.
and sometimes 3 years down the line you cannot complete everything.
Because the reason I asked that is to bring to that point, like, at what age should that child be assessed? Because you have to go to before you reach kindergarten, you have to go to preschool. Now there's some challenges in preschool that the teachers have with the children, like maybe the speech is being impaired, or again
Or
functional.
behavioral
How
issues.
there's a name calling that. There's a name they actually.
Or
There nowadays
How you
there's
call
the
it?
pre-case screening. There's another.
Oh, there's that as
Yes,
well.
yes, there's a pre-case screening as well, where sometimes you notice something, but then sometimes what they're saying is the children
because
are
of the
young,
connection.
that the children are young. Give them
Oh,
some
okay,
time.
okay, all right,
Give
all
them
right.
some time, because sometimes different children they develop at different
Because
ages.
you hear about autistic children and all those
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
Yes, so sometimes they would say, give them a chance. So they enter kindergarten, the red flag is there. You could not, you notice that, that child may, but they say, okay,
Well,
give them a little time. So they give them the kindergarten year.
mhm,
And then as they proceed into grade one,
mhm.
and you really see, yes, well, those red flags
Good thing you didn't ignore it.
pardon?
I say good thing it wasn't being ignored.
Yes, the like
Yeah.
we'll say, okay, those red flags, yes, that the child has
Has challenges,
challenges.
complications,
But then
whatever.
sometimes to the parents,
Mhm.
some parents are in denial.
That's the thing I like to bring. No, I love that. I love that part.
Yes.
You have to accept it when your child, or after being referred to a specialist, or even the teacher, bring it to your attention and say, hey, you know what? Come to think of it, let's do it in the interest of your child. Move the pride. Take away pride. All right? Because persons have pride.
That's what they say.
You got to be very careful. Don't do it for you. Do it for the
The
child.
child.
You understand?
So
And I
that is
like your
probably the more difficult of the two pathways, right, Miss?
yes, yes,
Because
yes, the parents. And it's really difficult to get those parents. They're in denial. They don't, oh, miss, my child doesn't have anything. Miss, my that one, maybe especially if they have an older child,
Uh-huh.
miss, the older one did not speak until he was maybe 5 or 6 or whatever. Miss, he's just slow, he'll get there. But you're seeing, yes, there are children that slow, but they're still able to function in the class. But those students, you're seeing that, you ask them questions, even a simple thing as what is your name, or you give them simple directions and they just cannot
No,
follow.
you know what? They're lost.
Yes, they're lost, they cannot follow.
They're
You
just
tell them,
lost.
take that for you, and they're
That's
looking
like,
at you and you're saying, look, this
yeah,
there, and
yeah, they're
and
lost.
they're lost.
On
So
world.
yes, they're just in their own world. So these are the students. When we see those things, we call on the parents, and sometimes the parents are in denial. Even when we call them to come and sign the paper, some parents refuse to come and sign.
Again, you have some person with some guilty conscience. Again, don't do it for you. Take away the pride. It's do it for your child, your child's interests. All right. Not for you. You have a lot of people in denial for you, and a lot like your
I
pride.
remember that
Ye-
from working at the primary school. I can remember that there were
And
some
it's
parents
really,
who,
really, and unless the parents, and sometimes we tell just what the gentleman said there, we tell them, miss, for the sake of your child, we actually beg them, we run after them, you do all sorts of things to see if
but
they
in
will.
truth and in fact, it's very difficult. It's a
You can,
difficult thing to accept. So I'm wondering what, apart from trying to beg them, what else can be done
Okay.
to help them to fully understand
But
that,
acknowledge
by
and
first
understand.
accepting and putting
Right.
them through into that center, that the child who stands a
may
better chance
Of
of gaining some a better quality of life, gaining some skills, gaining that level of independence that would allow them to function well within the society.
Well, I think maybe with that part, means sometimes we call them in, but maybe sometimes if they could head from a different perspective, maybe the ministry organizing some workshops or whatever.
heard
But
that.
then, but then Mr. Saint too, that is the special education officer, when before sending a child to special ed, he calls the person. They have a meeting with you, and give you some how your child would it would benefit your child and so on. But some parents, they're just in, and as the gentleman said, they're ashamed. But there's, as he said, there's nothing to be ashamed about. It is basically to help your child. And some of those students, when they come there and we help them, those students, they bloom. You could see that they develop certain skills and whatever. And we have some success stories, and the parents are telling you, miss, thank you, I sent my child there. There's a special young lady, she was in denial or what. We fought about 2 to 3 years before we got her to send. And when was that she met me, miss so and so, she's speaking now and whatever. Because sometimes as soon as they come in, we don't start to say it's academic. No, that's not what we're working on yet. We building the child. We building the
So
child.
what kind of programs and activities do you focus on?
Well, when they just come in, some of them may come with behavioral issues, meaning they cannot sit, they cannot focus, they cannot pay attention. So we do activities, little activities with them to help them focus, help them remain seated, help them be able to even respond to you.
Basics.
Just the basics. Yes, we don't at that time. We're not thinking. We do little academics like reciting your alphabet, maybe trying to identify letters, but to say they're seated like a general school class, no, and doing this, following the same program as this general school, no. Then we give them basics like lacing their shoe. because something like lacing their shoe or tying up their shoe, buttoning their shirt, life
For
skills
the
in fine
fine
motor
motor
skills,
skills.
their gross motor and their fine motor, we help them develop. Because at the general school, the teachers sometimes they have 40, 45 students, and then
You would not focus
focus
on that
and
sort of thing.
yes, so
Right.
you will not take yes, you'll give the child a little individual, but you will not like the amount of time they may get at the special ed school. The teacher may give them a little 10 minutes, but maybe at the general school we may give them half an hour in terms of just getting them to be able to build blocks. Because somebody people looking at building blocks like it's a skill, it develop your fine motor, eye coordination, and all those things. So yes, all those things, it helps. Even like the child will learn colors there. The child may develop skills such as let's say like if one block has six, and then if I want it to fit in, I have to look for another one with six. But if I just want half of it to hang out, they develop problem solving skills, because in their little brain, they figuring things out. And people may look at blocks really help the children, to develop many skills. So at the general school, the teacher may not, have time to be there with you. Okay, let's go. Sometimes at the beginning, the teacher may, we do hand on hand, because sometimes at the beginning, the children cannot even do eye hand coordination to fit. So
Because
you
those
kind
would
of
be activities you'd usually do at preschool,
school,
right?
yes,
And not in kindergarten
kindergarten,
or grade
right?
one.
So sometimes they come in and they have not developed those skills, so they still need to develop those skills. So
So that delays them a little bit
yes,
more,
yes,
right?
yes. So sometimes they come in and they're not like the pre. As I said a while ago, the pre-K screening, you see those red flags, but you say okay, because let's give them at least a 1 year in the kindergarten class. Let's see. Some of them improve, but some of them the red flag was there and it continued.
Okay. So you mentioned some of the activities that help to develop the children's fine motor skills, and I think sometimes we just take those things for granted. We just figure that they'll be able to hold a pencil and write. They'll be able to do all of those things without actually doing the activities that would enable them to develop those skills. Now, when we look at the special education center, as you said, it's a smaller population. You have more time to give individual attention. In a class, as you said, of 35, how possible it to pick out the two students who probably have not developed their fine motor skills, are a bit on the lower end, to develop them, to bring them to the point where they can actually hold a pencil to start, very early on children have to start taking notes and all of that sort of thing. So you find that they would lag, and that could create some mental and emotional challenges for them as well, right, Miss? When they
Yes.
see that the
Other-
others
Mhm.
are
Excelling.
functioning at a higher level than they are.
And maybe too it demotivates them as
Right.
well. Like, and sometimes too the teacher would say, I need my work completed, and then they're looking around, they can hardly hold a pencil, they can hardly write, and so on. So then they're there, maybe sometimes they have the idea in their mind, but they can't put it down on paper. So then sometimes these are where accommodation comes in. And that is why when I spoke about the children, the MST and CXC and CPEA, when we send up so that they do the test, they go to for assessment at the speed unit, and then now sometimes they give them accommodation, meaning that's why sometimes the parents, if they don't come in to sign and so on, sometimes there's a halt, we cannot move on. So if it is done and then they go through the assessment, then now they get accommodation, meaning sometimes they get a reader who reads to them, And maybe if they can write and they have whatever they write, sometimes they get a scribe, meaning they tell the person what they want to write
Mhm.
and the person writes for them. So sometimes they get a reader, a scribe, reader and a scribe. Yeah. And sometimes some of them, not that they don't know the answer, but they take a little longer to kind of understand. And so then they give them extra time. So like the if in the exam, and they most time those children are in a room on their own, because we don't want them to be in the same room with all the others taking the exam, and then now to distract them. So then they get extra time. So say if the exam was 1 hour, they will get an hour 15 minutes. So get a little longer. And some children they get breaks. You know those children that the ADHD or the hyper and they cannot sit still. You know, those children we know they need more frequent breaks. So they would give them, if it's 5 minutes now, and after this sometime give them another 5 minutes just to let them settle down, and then they continue. So there are all sorts of help or assistance that's given to those special needs students. But then it's, as I will say again, it's the parent. If the parent, and we know some parents, we know they've been in denial, and it's a healing process. Some parents, from they'll get up, they'll say no, if I continue like that, I'm not getting help for my child. It's my child that will suffer, my child that will be at the disadvantage. But some other person, especially if you do not have that bond, or you do not have family support or community support and so on, it's a longer time that those parents take to heal. Sometimes they feel ashamed, they don't want to go out in the public. And persons too, when they see those children, they tend to stare at them. And so the parents become embarrassed. The parents figure out, I'm not taking my child out. Some other parents say, me, I don't care whether they stare or not, it's my child or whatever. But some others, they feel embarrassed. They feel like, a sense of rejection, shame and rejection.
I'll say something. I'll add something that a lot of like society, a lot of people in society said have no empathy too.
Very
They have
good.
no
That's
empathy.
the word.
Like, hey, gotta think about,
Yes, yes.
And they use a
yes.
lot of derogatory terms.
Yes,
You understand?
especially that go thing they use, and sometimes too, because that's a word that was way in the past, and some children still use it now because at home they have parents using it, and that's a word now that is out. We don't use those words. We consider them special needs students because they're human, they're whatever. It's just that they have a special need.
True.
But then
Special
you,
attention is needed.
yes, special attention is needed, a little extra. And maybe that's what parents need to help at home. Tell them, he's a child just like you, whatever. It's just that. And as one teacher told me, Miss, we have to tell the parents, you didn't go by the market and just say you want a child and that's what they gave you. God created, God saw you, that you'll be able to take care of this child, and God gave you this child. So there's no need to be embarrassed. There's no embrace your child with all the needs that the child has. You embrace that child, and then now that child will blossom. That child will not like 100%, but that child you'll be surprised at how that child will grow and things. So we were asking the public out there, when you see, especially sometimes the children with autism, people tend to say, oh, malmesi, malmes.
Oh well, that
Malady,
one,
vein
yes,
malady.
because it's so difficult to, because they look so normal.
Yes,
Most
yes.
times the children with autism look so normal, but then they have those out there behaviors.
They normally throw tantrums.
Tantrums,
Right.
yes. And then parents, malady victim,
Mhm.
whatever. And then sometimes, because now some of them, they may not go to the special ed school. It's not that they cannot learn, they learn.
how do you diagnose that? You understand? How do you diagnose?
they
Not
learn.
by looking,
Yeah, because
definitely.
Not by
if they
looking.
look normal,
Yes.
and then for them to be for them kind of tantrums,
So
how
that is
can
why we have
Because
specialists learning
yes, that is why,
to
and then some
do the
people who do not
diagnosis.
know because they've seen the child normal. At
Right.
one time, the child is there well, things, and suddenly you just, hey, no, and then the child
Mm.
begins to fall,
Out of
control,
control.
and that kind of thing. And sometimes, too, when you see those things happen, it's just best to take them out of the situation or the environment. You take them, you bring them for a walk, you try to calm them down, or some of them, sometimes they get something like a softball to squeeze on or something. So then, and every out in this whole wide world, no child with autism is the same. Each of them have something that is different to another child. So you cannot even say, well, you what you did for that child, you will do
Will
it
work
for
for
another
another.
child. You have to just learn and just go with the flow and just try to see, and different things about autism. You just try and try, trial and error. But you have those students with autism that's on the gifted side.
Yes.
Those students excel, but they have social issues. They cannot interact with
With
people, and
others.
they cannot, the social skills are not developed as well. And that's most times how a child has autism, because the child will be in the class and the child is fun, the child is learning and whatever. And then when it comes to social, having friends and socializing, you see, so most times those gifted children, they don't socialize. But you as the parent, sometimes you go out, you help the child. Some persons, that those children, they stay indoors because they don't want to have friends and so on. But you can create little experiences for them. Take them to the beach, take them, different. And another thing about those children with autism, they don't like noise.
Mhm.
They'll cover anytime noise. You will see
They're
them.
hypersensitive.
Oh yes, they'll block the ears. They'll run in a corner. They'll go underneath the table. They cannot take noise.
So, Miss, I'm so happy you brought that up because Down syndrome, there are some physical features
Features.
that would
But
let you
no,
know that there's something different. But with autism,
no,
that is not the case.
no.
And in most things in life, when it comes to those things, early intervention is key.
Key.
So just in terms of the parents and convincing them to get that intervention early, I think one of the things is to really focus on the long term, to focus not so much on the short term but the long term, because I think one of the things parents don't think about is that at some point you will not be around to protect the child and to do everything for the child. So you have to allow them the space to learn so that they can function and gain as much independence as possible, because as the older people like to say, no parfait no pukono, right? So in terms of that, Miss, when it comes to support, does the school get a lot of support from the parents, and do the parents among themselves, do they have like a support group where those support groups can be very beneficial in terms of allowing parents who have similar challenges, they have those children with those challenges, allowing them the space to just be open and express what their challenges are, probably to share some of their experiences and get feedback from other parents in similar situations. Maybe that could be a way. I don't know if it exists in your center at the moment.
Well, no. We find maybe like those maybe around the same, because like Choiseul, there are about six of them down on the Delta side. So those maybe will interact with each other and so on. Let's say if I need to send a message, like they will go, they will speak with each other. Maybe that's just that little community. But then in terms of a wider group to say coming together, no, we don't have that kind of support, parent supporting parent. We don't have that one.
Maybe it's something
We
that
can
you
look
could
in
consider if
Yeah.
the parents are willing, because sometimes you just need
St-
that little time to speak
Speak.
and to say something, to share your experiences, and maybe somebody else has already experienced it and they can give you a few ideas, in as much as we say, what works for one child may not really work for another. But these are things to consider.
But maybe means just like venting,
Mhm.
because sometimes it becomes so frustrated. I
Mm.
know how sometimes the parents feel, in terms of when you have to handle those children. And sometimes, just a place, maybe the day, just to vent and to say, and what you're going through. And maybe
Mhm.
that can help another parent. And the parent will feel, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one going through it. And that
Exactly.
alone can kind of build them
Yes.
up and tell them, okay, I can do it.
Yes. I think support groups can be
Can
very
be
beneficial.
beneficial.
So maybe that's
It's a
something
thing I
that can
can
be
look.
looked into, that you can consider.
But they also have the WhatsApp group. Each class has their WhatsApp group, and they can each teacher, and
But I
sometimes they share
imagine they use it
more
for
more school
disseminating information.
information. Yes.
Yes. So, Miss, in terms of support for from specialists, because that you have
Oh yeah, we
children with
started with
mild to
that.
moderate
To severe.
challenges and severe challenges, physical, emotional, social. In fact, the whole gamut of challenges, you have them. So, what type of support do you have from specialists?
Well, miss, if there's something called an IP, that is an individual educational plan
Mhm.
you have for each
Each
child.
student,
Yes,
okay.
each student. And on this IP, you're supposed to have a physiotherapist, a speech therapist, a clinical psychologist, and I said the community doctor, and so on. And to tell you the truth, when we prepare those IPs, it's just teacher and parent, because the parent has to has an input as to what they want for the child, what are the child needs, and what they want for. And most times, in fact, not most, all the time, the other therapist, the other persons, miss, we don't get them because we do not have any. And by right, this is a special needs school. We're supposed to have all those, or if they're not stationed at the school, but at least come in once a week and so on. And I've been trying even through GOVC. I am trying to get maybe a occupational therapist, and I was not at the school at the time, but some of the other teachers telling me, Miss, and we have had success stories where some look so and so can walk, Miss, because they came in, Miss, whatever skill or whatever they taught us to do with the child. If it's to stretch, if it's to do this, Miss, we can, when they leave, we every day used to come once a week, Miss. They would teach us what to do. When they go, we would continue. So we imagine there was a speech therapist coming in. May her soul rest in peace. She passed, a young lady from the special ed unit. And then when she comes, she'll tell me, Miss, I really wish I could come more often. It's sometimes when she gets a little break, because most time she's at the special ed unit, and then she's doing tests like for general school children to give
Okay.
them accommodation and so on. But in terms of going to the special ed schools,
To do
she
the practical.
practical, she wasn't getting the time. There is one at Viewford Special Education Center, but they're not paying her as a specialist. They're paying her as a teacher. And plus, if she has to be paid as a special needs teacher, she has to go to the special ed. She has to work with Ministry of Education. She has to go to the special ed unit. So you find, so we're saying, well, give us this speech therapist down south. They will work with Soufre and Viewfort. And
So there are some things that need to be sorted out at a higher level,
yes,
in
because
other words.
so like means, and I find like those red tapes, like if you have a master's, you cannot be there, whatever is at the ministry you have to work, and miss, and they're not seeing the advantage of having the the persons out there in the community assisting.
Because so exactly, Miss, because you need them on site.
On site.
You need them on site. So in the absence of having them stationed there, as you said, you mentioned that some of them would do some training.
Yes.
So maybe that is another pathway that you can look into to get the teachers trained in certain aspects for
Yes.
the physiotherapy, the occupational therapy, in as much as they would not be able to provide everything that a specialist would be able to provide. Because at the end of the day, the main objective is to help the children to explore and exploit their potential. So there's a certain level of support that is required. And as you said, you're missing quite a few of your links:
Yeah.
the clinical psychologist,
Psychologist,
the
yeah,
physiotherapist. So I would I will open out a call. I mean, there are people within our communities who are trained in certain things. And if Miss, would you be willing to entertain the thought of having somebody volunteer, even though they cannot
Oh
volunteer on
yes,
a
we try.
regular
We
basis?
have tried. We have reached
Because
out.
I'm
Maybe I
sure
have not gotten the right person, but we out there. We at the school. We always try and see if there's anybody in the community that can come in and are they trained in those fields. Now
Mhm.
we have not gotten, but if anybody knows somebody we may not know, and you tell us, send us a name, send us, and the person is willing to
To
volunteer. But
volunteer.
sometimes the people too, they have their own jobs, they're working,
That
and
is true.
but then if they could give us half an hour for the day or whatever, we would appreciate it. Something maybe to give our the children, to help the children. We are willing even to reschedule and to tweak our timetable, whatever we have to do to assist. We are open.
That is wonderful, Miss. So I hope that among our listeners out there, if you if you are specially trained, or you know of somebody who's specially trained who can volunteer their services, and Miss is
Most appreciate.
willing to have a discussion with you so that she could provide some level of support to her students. Because I imagine, Miss, it might be a little bit frustrating when you don't have all the resources
Resources,
that you
yes,
need
yes, yes.
to do what you know can be done.
And basically, our school, what we lack is the human resource. At SUFRA, especially, the trained personnels. I would think this is one of our greatest disadvantage, not having those trained persons coming in.
Okay. And also maybe to get some training for the
Teachers,
teachers so
yes.
that they can
So
develop
then
their
they have to,
skills.
in terms of specialization,
Yes.
like if it's clinical or speech or whatever, to get those training.
Okay, wonderful. So, Miss, the last thing I really want you to just to give a little, you talked about it briefly, but the stigma. What message would you like to leave with the community in terms of the stigma that is attached to the school, and also for the parents out there who are still who are not yet convinced that the child, although the recommendation has been made that the child would be better served at the special education center? What message would you like to share with them?
Well, I just want the persons out there, or the public and parents, that the school is a school where your child will develop. it is no boast, no lie. Your child will develop. Your child will become that holistic child because we give them lots of opportunities. And up to this morning, we were looking at some of our students and we were saying, wow, they have really developed. In some persons who look at running within a lane as something like that's okay, can just run. And then we had some big boys. We just completed our sports last week, Thursday, and we had some big boys, and they just couldn't do that. And this spot around gave them the opportunity to be able, and we saw them, they kept to their lanes and so on. Now, sometimes those children at the special needs school, would they ever take those children to run a race for them?
True.
No,
They would say,
probably
me,
not.
well, never, yes, you know,
Because you're looking at disqualification
and you're looking at
points
and
and you
so
want your
on,
house to win and that
so
sort
on.
of thing.
But then they having their own little sports meet, and they're doing their own little thing running. And even though we had to send them twice to start again, but we gave them that opportunity. Look, we have there was a year when we were doing our library, and we formed groups, and we gave such some of them the charge. You're the leader of that group. You're the leader. Maybe at a general school, they would not get a chance to be a leader. And one of them, if you see how he has developed, now we're calling him the PRO. Yeah, he comes, he speaks out, he reports because that's what they had to do. So he has developed those skills. So I mean, being at the general school, sometimes they don't get those little opportunities. Look, we have our life skills room, if I may touch on it, and there we're teaching them to cook. They're preparing because, as you said, upa fetima maila puko. We're teaching them how to do breakfast. We're
Mhm.
teaching them how to do simple meals. We're teaching them how to wash. We're teaching them to wash, to iron, to take care. We have a part where it's like a little home. And they have their bedroom on that side. They have their dining room, and
They
to
learn how to
wipe.
care for the
Yeah,
home.
the caring for the home
Wonderful.
at the general school. Because some of them may never end up with a job. This, but then at least if they're at home, they can take care of a home. They have their
Means
little place
they can
and
work
work.
doing that.
Yes, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. They can do if he's landscaping or if
Yes.
he's chambermaid or something. They can, they may not have the big time, but they're still earning some income. Look, we have our agriculture program going on. Oh, they're in love with that agriculture. I think Miss said today they were harvesting peanuts. I think, and we're doing different crops at each time.
Very
And
nice.
if I may promote, June 1st, that's the date we're looking at, where our students will be going to Castries with the other special ed schools to do in a big project. That's an equip project. And then those students, look, we see those vase that they're doing now with the cement and
Oh, with
whatever,
the towels and
towel,
so.
and our
Okay.
students are learning. Our students are learning to do that now. All those things will be part of the pieces to take to the exhibition, and then
Wonderful.
yeah. So then, if they were at a general school, they would not be able to develop all those little skills, and and then when we harvest, then that's the new part of that project now to sell. So now that them, so then we did it little. Now we're going big time where they will be selling to the public and so on. So those students at the school, we really helping them develop lots of skills. We're teaching them how to fill out a form if they go to the bank, how to write
Very
the
good.
name, the date, and whatever. Skills that they will need to survive in society, which teach them how to count, not thousands of dollars, but at least,
Yeah.
$5, 10, 15, 20.
Right.
What change if they give somebody, they pay $5, how much they will get, and so on, and the real money. So we're trying to give them lots of skills, those that can, because we know there are some they will never get to that stage. But all those we see the potential where they can get to that stage, we give it to them. So I'm telling persons out there, when you see those children, please don't mock them, don't laugh at them, don't ridicule them, and so and your children. sensitize them to those children. Tell them when you see those children, they're human, they're children just like you, and say to them, say, praise God that you'll be able to walk. Say, praise God, you're able to function. Now, those students, they're especially able, but it doesn't mean that they cannot do it. Maybe they'll take a longer time to do it. So when you see them out there, respect them. You can even say hi to them, give a smile to them, but don't make a monkey face at them. Or when you see them with your friends, you'll laugh, you'll tease them, and you'll run.
Or you bully them.
Or even bully them. Yes, thanks. So that do but be empathetic towards them. And parents too, be empathetic towards the parent of those children. And sometimes some of the things that they say, oh, ipawe kalteti mama inila, and whatever. And those parents with those children, don't be ashamed to take your child out. Take your child everywhere. If he throws a tantrum, you just remove yourself from the situation or the environment, but don't be ashamed. Take your child out there. If the child throws a tantrum during church, you take the child out. Take your child to the beach. Take your child. There are places you cannot take them because of the noise and so on. Thing that's the autistic children. Your Down syndrome child, no matter the features, take your child out there. And and some parents, they believe because they have those special needs children, they kind of reject the children and they don't maybe groom them properly. They don't they just anyhow. The same way you treat, if you have two or three of them, the same way you treat the other two, you treat the other one the same. The same way you groom the others, you groom your child. I know some parents out there who's doing a fantastic job of taking care of those children, of grooming those children. I want to say to those parents, keep it up. That those children, they were gifts from God. God knew you would be very patient. God knew you would be able, because people always saying, "Bon Dieu pa ka ba ou gal si ba ba ou zon pou wate." So God knew you would have been that special child. That special parent. Don't be ashamed. Showcase your child. Bring your child out. Bring your child places. Groom your child properly. Don't say, hey, because in ribbon. Oh, some people, because who say she cannot wear a ribbon too? And that kind of thing. Give your child a ribbon when it's your child's birthday. If you have to make photo shoot for your child and snap pictures and put balloons, make your child feel just like any other normal child. And don't, because hey, whatever, you reject your child. No, I'm telling to you again, parents, treat your child like any normal child. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Regis. That was very well said. I have nothing to add. And I hope that what you said really resonated. Moi, hope that kite sa an tswe an se vel zot bon matin. Because she spoke very powerfully. And I think we all can learn or should have learned something from her contribution today. Thank you so much for listening to Casualty 911. We will meet you again next week, Monday at the same time.
I enjoy.
10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with the consultant. Health is not merely